welcome to FIDM's ongoing series, The Future of. Our topic this month is the Metaverse. My name is Tom Henkenius. I'm the co-chair of FIDM's bachelor's degrees in digital marketing and graphic design. Some of you have been with us for a long time now. In fact, this month marks 2 years of us doing this series. 2 months ago, we started this journey into Web3. And if you remember, we kind of took a look at what Web3 means. So take a look at this graphic we've put together for you. When we think about Web3, it has to do with all the different parts of this newly connected web. It includes NFTs, it includes crypto. Today, you'll hear us talk about those things again. And I do recommend if you missed those previous discussions that you visit our YouTube channel. They were both pretty enlightening conversations. But our primary focus today is actually to explore the evolution of our online life, talking specifically about the future of the Metaverse. Our first guest is Caroline McCauley. She's the director of marketing at Obsess. They're a startup that builds out brands' e-commerce space within the Metaverse. And I think we may have some video we can show you of some of the work they've done. She'll explain that she can be on their website or within games like Roblox that you can actually build out the Metaverse. So not just this place where we put on a headset. She will set the scene for the ways that brands are entering the Metaverse. And then later, we'll talk with 3 incredible attorneys from Reed Smith, which recently published a legal guide to the Metaverse. They cover all sorts of legal issues ranging from intellectual property to privacy to competition and what the firm is calling, quote unquote, the biggest ever industrial revolution the world has seen. We'll get back to that. First though, what are the brands doing? So I'd like to invite Caroline to turn her camera on and start with this conversation around what some are calling experiential in e-commerce. So we've heard of brick and mortar experiential retail for a long time. Your company, though, Caroline, is actually bringing experiential to this e-commerce space. So I'm kind of curious what that means, at least for you. And also, is it worth the major investment that it costs to do it?
Yes. So experiential e-commerce is a new type of digital shopping experience that provides a much higher level of engagement and interaction for the customers compared to the traditional e-commerce platform in 2D as we see it now. And our virtual stores play a very large role in experiential e-commerce as they offer a 3D 360-degree full-page visual experience that can live on a brand's e-commerce site. Customers can navigate around our virtual stores using their phones or computers without a headset, similar to how you would browse around at a brick and mortar store. The e-commerce interface has evolved from this monotonous grid of thumbnails that really Amazon invented 25 years ago. And now Obsess really has come up with this experiential e-commerce that offers a visual, creative, and contextual experience for the consumer instead of just the basic traditional online shopping interface. And absolutely. Yeah. And then the graphical interface really inspires consumers to have this immersive and discovery-driven brand experience.
It's fascinating to look at. We've looked at some of the images as they popped up on the screen here to see what you guys have built out. As a brand is thinking about potentially moving into this space, what are the things they should be thinking of, the steps involved?
Yes, so definitely our whole entire virtual stores, it's a creative process. So when a brand comes to us, it's great if they have some creative ideas. As you can see, the stores are all very different, so they're customized. So for example, the one we're looking at right now is, this is Ralph Lauren's real store in Saint-Germain, Paris. And it is a photorealistic rendering of their actual store. Whereas the previous ones that you showed, I think you showed Dermalogica, right here, Dermalogica, or actually the previous one was Dermalogica right here. This is a completely fictional scenario. So this is not something that exists in real life. It is the same type of animation that actually Disney uses for their movies. So brands should really keep in mind kind of what they want. Do they want a fictional, kind of like this dreamy, surreal setting, or do they want something that's more realistic? And that really just differs based upon their essentially their creative guidelines and really what they're looking for.
Okay, so step one, identify kind of the way you want to build out your brand. And then where, I guess then step two would be where to launch it? Where do I put this space? Where do I build it?
Yes. So step 2 would be to really understand what platforms to build the space out on. And there are a variety of platforms right now: Roblox, Fortnite, Decentraland. So the brands really have to understand what platforms would be the best according to their own audience.
So
And as you see, this is the Roblox experience right here.
obviously, I've been waiting for this one to pop up because I'm sure those of us, especially those of us who have kids in our life or young people in our life, we're familiar with that. That avatar right there looks pretty familiar. So you could build in this space. You could also build and then have it on your website. As I was digging through some of the work you guys have done, those are the two primary ways that brands are approaching it right now. Is that right?
Yes. Many are just, for right now, just putting it on their e-commerce site. So they'll feature it on their homepage, and then it will go to another link, which is our virtual store link.
Yeah.
But then other brands are more avant-garde, and they're really embracing the metaverse and, going on Roblox, even going on to Fortnite, Decentraland. So that's kind of a step ahead.
Okay, so that would be next level, is going into this space. It's
Yes.
interesting. So I've been around a long time. I'm older and more experienced at this than maybe sometimes I care to admit. But I think about the start of e-commerce. Around 2000, very expensive to build a website, very expensive to figure out how to do the checkout process and fulfillment and track all of these pieces. And a lot of people were building things internally and not looking to software as a service like we see it now. Is that kind of the same space we're in for the metaverse? Is a similar place now?
I think for the metaverse, it's going to be very complex. So because there's all these different metaverse platforms and still emerging platforms that we don't even know about, brands are actually hiring a whole entire metaverse task force team. So for example, Gucci has a team that's called the Dream Big team that is a permanent metaverse dedicated team. So really, I think that, it's still kind of a space where there's a lot of uncharted territory. And because of that, large brands are spending, at least 6 months doing research as to, should they go on Roblox? Why should they go on Roblox? Should they go on Fortnite? What other, metaverse platforms are popping up that we don't even know about? So I will say that it's still in an emerging and discovery phase. But people, especially the bigger brands, are very interested in this space, and they're allocating tons of resources and budget to it.
The thing I'm thinking about as you talk about larger brands and as you talk about resources and budget, this seems to be something that's primarily focused on the big brands right now. You've got to be a major player to really get involved. Is that accurate?
I think from our perspective, we're working with bigger brands, but I think that anyone could enter into Roblox or Fortnite or the metaverse. It does help if you have a budget, because again, it's kind of like an emerging, I would say definitely it's emerging. So people need to really have resources to do it. But I would say, I think anyone can, go out and try to create something from Roblox or Fortnite.
Just build it. I mean, if my nephews can do it, we all can do it, right? We can take this on.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to ask you about is a study that your company published. And for anybody who wants to find it, just Google the Metaverse Mindset, it's called. It was a really interesting read. A lot of interesting data in there. You found, and I'm going to read it, 70% of visitors to virtual stores make a purchase. Again, 70% of visitors to a virtual store make a purchase, which is a big number when we think about retail. Nearly 75% of Gen Z report buying a digital product inside of a game. 27% think that the metaverse refers specifically to tech owned by Facebook, which goes to my whole theory that we're only talking about the metaverse because Mark Zuckerberg said we need to. There's a lot of interesting stats in there, though, but I wonder what your big takeaway is from the report. What was, you live in this space, what really caught your attention?
Yes. So one of the biggest takeaways from the report is that really there is high demand for experiential e-commerce. But I would say that, consumers are still kind of unfamiliar with this uncharted territory of the metaverse. Like, people, again, associate it with Zuckerberg, Facebook, and it's really not yet ubiquitous within the space. Like, you don't get on, Google and see the metaverse. You don't see 3D format. But I do think in the very near future that we will find, especially when these larger social media companies and tech companies have come out with Meta and really adopted that, we will find that consumers really enjoy finding and shopping in a 3D format and really prefer kind of this 3D shopping format better than a 2D flat page.
Okay, all right. We're going to come back to Caroline. And thank you so much, Caroline. That was the work that you all are doing. I just recommend everybody go check out their website and do take a look at that. The report is called The Metaverse Mindset. Super interesting read and kind of inspiring on what you think about would potentially come next in the space. But what I want to turn to now is the legal side of all of the pieces we've been speaking about the last few months. So I'm joined by three amazing attorneys from Reed Smith. Each can kind of address different elements of Web3 and the metaverse, but I'd like to start with Kat Kirschner. She works in trademark law and counsels on strategy, prosecution, and enforcement efforts for global trademark portfolio. And I think, Kat, what I'd like to start by asking about is where things stand from a legal point of view as we think about the metaverse. And I know that's a really broad question, but kind of what's really standing out to you right now in the space, legally speaking?
Yeah, so what stands out to me right now is that we're applying our existing legal concepts to this new technology, which is the metaverse. And so right now, courts are looking at the metaverse as a video game. And that means that they are taking whatever law is around, the use of, for example, brands, IP, et cetera, and applying the concepts as if the metaverse were a video game, which, right now it pretty much is. So there's a really interesting legal case came out a few years ago. A strip club sued the makers of the video game Grand Theft Auto because the Grand Theft Auto had a version of that strip club inside the game. And there's a very unique test for whether you're allowed to use a brand inside of a work of art. And the test is very favorable to the artist or the creator of the work of art. And the test is that as long as the use of the brand inside the work of art is relevant to the art itself, and as long as the artist did not do anything to suggest sponsorship or affiliation by the actual brand owner, that use is okay. So Grand Theft Auto, it was okay for them to have a representation of this strip club. What that's meaning right now in the metaverse is that if you are a person who's creating an experience in the metaverse and you are using a brand, as long as you can meet that test, you can keep doing what you're doing. That could change. It is possible that the metaverse will become so ubiquitous that it will no longer be treated like a video game. But as of right now, video games are art. The metaverse is a video game. And so the standard is actually pretty favorable to the creators.
I'm just going to make a parallel, and I apologize for kind of going off script on you here, but is that the same space when we think about a television or a movie and we see a brand as it appears naturally? And yes, sometimes they're blanked out, but usually the fuzzing out is actually a choice of the producer, not for any other reason than, you didn't pay to be on the Kardashians, so I'm not going to give you access to that audience. So is it just for our mind's sake, is it kind of equitable?
Yes, very similar.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you for that. I also very much appreciate that you shared with us that it's similar to gaming, right? We can equate the metaverse and gaming at this point, and I think that makes a lot of sense for me. You've talked about this already just a little bit, but in this series, we've talked about NFTs quite a bit. Not once, though, in our discussion of NFTs and Web3 have we even addressed copyright. So as I think about the NFT, I own it. Someone could easily right-click and copy-paste. I mean, I was even thinking this morning, I think it was Instagram announced they're going to put NFTs on the site. I could take a screenshot of that. Is that infringing on the person's copyright who owns the NFT? Are there trademarks within? I'm just thrown off. Where's that space?
NFTs are difficult because there are sort of two layers to what an NFT is. First of all, an NFT is the work of art that it represents. So, usually an NFT is an image, or if you're familiar with NBA Top Shot, it's a short video clip. That is protected under copyright, and that's considered a work of art. But the actual NFT that you might download, the actual software, is really just a certificate of ownership to that thing. So there are two different layers that we're talking about, and that's kind of helpful to be thinking about as we sort of talk about what you can do with an NFT. But so you sort of asked two questions, and I'm going to try to answer both of them. If you have an NFT that has somebody else's trademark in it, it's going to be the same test that I just talked about from the Grand Theft Auto case. And there's a really interesting legal case that's pending right now where Hermes, the maker of the Birkin, has sued the artist Mason Rothschild because Mason Rothschild is making NFTs that he calls meta Birkins. And they are an image of a Birkin, but the Birkin has fur on it. And Hermes had said, you can't do that. That's not okay with us. And Rothschild says, this is a work of art, and I am commenting on the fact that there's animal cruelty involved in producing super high-end luxury leather bags. Right now, the status of the case is that Rothschild tried to move to dismiss the whole action. The case, the court did not throw it out, so it is still pending. But if I were a betting woman, I would bet that the artist is going to win that case. So I'll let you follow up on that, but then I also do want to address the idea of NFTs with copyrights embedded, which is a little different.
No, keep going. Like that, I have no follow-up on that. It's fascinating.
It's a great case. I'm watching it. I've got like a little alert on my browser to try to make sure that I read every new development.
Is this better than Johnny Depp Amber Heard? Sorry.
I hope so. As a trademark lawyer, I think it is, but
Edge of our seat.
So the other possibility is that your NFT might have somebody's copyright in it. So rather than having a Birkin in it, it might have, for example, it might be a short video clip from the movie Pulp Fiction, right? And that is copyrighted. So when it's a copyright that's embedded in another work of art, then it's a slightly different test. It's called the fair use doctrine. And basically, there are a couple factors that a court will weigh to decide whether what you're doing, what the artist or the creator of the NFT is doing. The sort of purpose and character of the use is one of the main factors. And what that means is the use of the copyright, the underlying copyright, is that educational? Are you doing it as a nonprofit? Are you selling something? Generally, if it's a commercial use, then they're going to be less inclined to say, yes, you can use someone else's copyrighted work. Whereas if it's educational, they're going to say, yes, of course, the teacher can display a clip of Pulp Fiction in the context of a film class. The other factors are the amount of the copyrighted work that's been used. So if you've got the entire video of Pulp Fiction, you're not going to be in good shape. But if you've got a tiny little clip, you should be okay. Right. And then also the effect of the use on the potential market for the underlying copyrighted work. So this is where things get interesting. So there is a case where Pulp Fiction was, the copyright is owned by the studio, but Tarantino has some screenplay notes.
Tarantino, the director, just for people who are out of the picture, yeah.
Yeah, so his screenplay notes, they have a contract where he says, you get the copyright to the movie, but I, Tarantino, reserve the right to do anything I want with the screenplay. And now Tarantino is trying to create NFTs of the images of his annotated original screenplay. And there's a big fight about it, and we don't know which way it's going to go. But that's an example of how an NFT can incorporate something that is potentially under copyright owned by somebody else, and you can have a big fight about it.
It's all so fascinating. So, okay, here, before I say anything else, I will preface this that I was really interested in your background, knowing that you worked in marketing for a while before then becoming an attorney. And so I kind of, with that and that cap on and sort of this understanding of your background and knowing that a lot of the work we do here at the college is teaching people about marketing and then helping keep people, engaged at marketing, that I see multiple entry points for the metaverse. And I think that was one of the biggest surprises in prepping for today. I always thought the metaverse was, I'm going to put a headset on and then the VR is going to take over and I'm no longer in reality. I am in virtual reality, AKA the metaverse. But as someone who's worked in the marketing and advertising space, now as an attorney, I imagine your perspective is pretty unique on how you see consumers will roll into the metaverse. Is it just gaming, like you've already said? Will it only be just gaming? Will we get to the point of the headsets? What's your take?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that question because I think putting my marketing hat on, every brand wants wants as many consumers to buy their product as possible. You want to reach as many people as you can, expand the reach of your brand in any way you can. And so I think in terms of entry points to the metaverse, we're going to see those entry points start to multiply as the brands start jumping into the space. So right now we've got, the VR headsets, which are mostly the entry point for the gamers, the sort of gaming enthusiasts. And then we've also got the 2D screen, right, which is what Caroline was talking about earlier, where I'm an avid shopper, I'm on the existing, Gucci webpage, and I want to go to a virtual store. So we've got these two entry points right now, but I think we will see the entry points multiplying, especially as technology develops in terms of accessories. I expect that, in the future, I will probably have a full VR rig in my office so that I can go to an office meeting, right? My work has one use case for the metaverse, but also maybe Facebook, now Meta, or Apple will produce glasses that'll have augmented reality so that I can have a really sweet pair of sunglasses. And as I'm walking around in the real world, the sunglasses will alert me that there's a sale at a shop that I'm walking by, or an item that they think I like is actually for sale in that store. So I think we're going to see more, but right now what we've got is we've got the rigs that are mostly directed at the gaming community, and then we've got the 2D screens that are mostly directed at the sort of general consumer.
Interesting. Okay. All right, Kat, thank you. Questions for Kat can be obviously directed through the Q&A at the bottom, and she will be back with us in just a bit to take those questions from you. For now, though, I want to turn to Carrie Bruce, who's a partner at Reed Smith also. She's in the entertainment and media group. Carrie represents clients in matters relating to advertising marketing, also intellectual property technology, legal advisor to the Association of National Advertisers, which I think is relevant to us in our conversation. And Carrie, your expertise is in the ad space. I'm curious what you're seeing as you see the confluence of Web3, retail, marketing, all that's happening. What's out there?
Sure. I mean, what's interesting about all of the talk about the metaverse now is brands are and have been participating in virtual worlds for a long time, right? For instance, brands have been partnering with games for years with sponsorship and placement opportunities and the like. So that's not really new. But what we're seeing now is, we've heard Kat and Caroline talk a bit about it. We're seeing brands participate in other ways. They're selling virtual fashion for avatars, which link to physical products. We're seeing virtual events, from concerts to fashion shows to digital artwork. We're seeing brands selling exclusive online memberships to online communities, so that it's all about, connecting with those customers and developing that experience, right? Nike opened Nike Land and Roblox. Adidas bought virtual property in the Metaverse sandbox. Brands are selling NFTs and using them to create buzz and donating the money to charity. We're also seeing brands, of course, develop their own marketplaces to sell digital memorabilia, right? They've got all of these old video clips and other digital assets just sitting around. So you get somebody like NBA Top Shot developing their own marketplace, right? And they're doing that to, use and create value for those assets, but they've also created a community with those assets where there are benefits for those people that are buying those assets, and they're doing all they can to keep you sticky to their marketplace, right? And then you see, but also as advertising evolves in this sort of new reality, right? You can buy ads in video games. You're going to be able to just buy ads in Metaverse, just like you can programmatically, on digital websites, right? So we're going to see the whole ecosystem, and already are seeing it evolve.
It's interesting, and it's funny. I think about we've been talking about dynamic ad insertion in games like Grand Theft Auto for a long time. Mm-hmm. I never considered that part of the metaverse. We just thought of that as gaming. but really that's part of the metaverse.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, there are already companies that are doing that dynamic ad insertion, and that's going to evolve, as all of these other aspects of the metaverse evolve.
Interesting.
Right. So I've
Yeah.
just, I go and build, I buy a piece of property in the metaverse, and, I'm going to be able to sell ads on my property in the metaverse, just like I could sell ads on the side of my building.
The Gucci bag that we've actually talked about in the series before, sold on Roblox for $6 by Gucci, ended up reselling to the point of $4,000. Some called it a proof of concept for this whole like resale marketplace, NFT, et cetera, et cetera. Gucci's parent, though, even said their chief digital officer said he was leery about it after going through the whole process. Bernard Arnault, who is at LVMH, as we all know, is like calling this a whole bubble. And then there's other brands that are leaning in on the digital NFT with a tangible product. So you buy your NFT that could be worn on your avatar, and then you've got the tangible product to carry with you in person. Is there a standard use case emerging that you're seeing out there? Is this just still the Wild West? What's your thoughts?
I think everything you've mentioned is becoming sort of a standard use case, right? And whether it's going to stick around is the question. But I think ultimately brands are trying to trying to find new ways to build relationships and connections with those consumers, right? So and the more they can tie those online and offline connections, the better. And so that's why you're seeing, brands sell the offline, assets and the online assets together. So there is that connection. And I think the generation of consumers, right, who have grown up in these virtual worlds, I mean, I'm going to date myself, but like, my kids spend, all this time in Roblox and Fortnite and stuff. And they are fingernail biting, waiting for the latest drop of the latest skin so that they can get the best. Right. And so they care about these assets and they're building connections with the brands, in these universes. Right. And I think brands are going to do all they can to continue to do that. I think the key is also for brands to figure out what their strategy is. I mean, I have clients come to me every day that want to do an NFT drop, right? And it's because it's buzzworthy. Everybody's just doing it because they feel like they have to, which, that's fine too. But I think there are also brands out there that are trying to be really strategic and about how they get involved in the NFTs and the metaverse so that they can think about what's their strategy and how are they going to measure ROI? Because as Caroline said before, right, it takes a budget. You really should have a budget if you're going to do something substantial in the metaverse.
And don't forget the cost of the people involved as you're working on that budget. That's the technology is one piece, and then there's this whole other side of the human involvement. The other thing I'm kind of curious to ask you about, and I guess maybe in this space, putting on your legal hat a little more, is, you read so many different predictions about where this goes. So, to go down one of the dystopian tubes, you end up with Mark Zuckerberg ruling us all. He's got the one ring. From your perspective, with that legal analysis involved in it, are there guardrails at this point? It seems like we don't have a lot legally to protect, even, as we've seen on Facebook and Instagram and all the leaks last year, there's not a lot of protections in place. Is there other things that apply here that might protect us?
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple things to address in that question, right? The first is, will Mark Zuckerberg rule all, right? I don't think that we will get to the point to where there is one Ready Player One metaverse, right? We already have lots of little mini metaverses all over the place, right? And I think everybody's, the big dream, right, is so that people can interact between those different worlds, right? I can take my skins from Fortnite, go over to Roblox and use them and walk over to the next, virtually walk to the next one and share those, my assets between those worlds, right? Well, as you can imagine, that involves a lot of IP analysis, a lot of contracts, and a lot of technology to allow that interoperability. So I don't really think that we will get to sort of one, big metaverse. And I also think regulators are watching this from a few different perspectives, right? So regulators are going to be watching the consolidation, I think, of these metaverses so that doesn't happen from like an antitrust perspective. I think, regulators have learned a lot from social media and what has happened in social media. So they're going to be applying a lot of that to the metaverse. And we've already seen, for instance, the FTC looking at this, they're doing studies. Bills are being proposed in Congress to regulate the metaverse and digital currency and sort of how consumers interact with these products. And then as far as the laws, Tom, that you mentioned that protect us, and Kat mentioned this before, with the metaverse, you have to apply our current laws, our offline laws to the digital world. So all of those laws about consumer protection and unfair deceptive advertising and unfair deceptive advertising practices, those apply in the metaverse too, right? The laws with respect to cryptocurrency, laws with respect to intellectual property, they might apply. We all have to apply them in the metaverse as well. So there are laws that protect us, but regulators are watching this space closely.
And it's so fascinating, and I wish we had more time because each of you I could speak to for 45 minutes on this. Okay, so obviously Q&A at the bottom if you have questions for Carrie or any of our other panelists. Carrie will be back shortly to continue our conversation with us. For now, though, I want to introduce our last guest for the hour. Erin Terry is a member of OnChain, which is Reed Smith's crypto and digital asset groups. She has experience advising clients on crypto-related asset reviews. And Erin, I'm kind of curious to start there. What are you seeing as you do these asset reviews? What are you seeing as they relate to the metaverse in this moment?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me and having me a part of this conversation. I think primarily since starting at the firm, I'm a newer associate. My work with the metaverse and crypto has mostly been in the trademark space. And so filing these new trademark registrations for clients that are really interested in sort of, making sure they get there first. And so for those in the audience who are not super familiar with trademarks, just to start, essentially, when you file a trademark, you're essentially asserting your rights to use a certain phrase, logo, name, what have you, in connection with whatever goods or services you listed within that application. So usually then after you file, the trademark office will review the application, and if it complies with trademark law, then you'll have a valid trademark registration, which will then make it easier for you to assert your rights against any third party who tries to use your trademark or something super similar in the marketplace. So for example, I assisted a client with a trademark filing that would allow it essentially to use their company name in relation to a virtual shopping experience. So neither of these companies were involved, but how I like to describe it is think Instacart and Sims. You're ordering your groceries, but you're essentially having this virtual experience of walking down the aisles and the products you want are on the shelves. You're not worried about people picking the bad fruit. You can kind of have a say in what items are actually picked, even though you're not there. And so this particular client was in the food industry, but we're also seeing, as the other panelists have so greatly identified, we're seeing this occur at great rates in the fashion and the beauty industry. So for example, you read it all about it in the news. L'Oreal is racing to file these trademarks worldwide in connection with its subsidiaries such as Urban Decay, Maybelline, Essie, in connection with virtual goods and services. And so I haven't seen the company's, full rolled out implementation of how exactly they plan to use these trademark rights in connection with goods and services in the metaverse. But I know, for example, some companies are thinking about when you go and you buy a physical product in store, you automatically get an NFT of the same product in the metaverse. So think about like bags or makeup as well. So something interesting that Carrie touched on a bit is, there's kind of this race to file trademarks. I think there's like a mad dash because there's a lot of buzz around this, and companies want to make sure they get there first so that they're not, blocked from using these rights or participating in this space later, at least from a trademark perspective. And so with that being said, I feel like there's this dash, but the companies are still trying to figure out what exactly they're even doing, what exactly the opportunities are in this space. And so I think that there, are infinite opportunities. So it'll be interesting to see, once they've acquired these trademark rights, they sit and marinate on a little bit and then roll out this very thoughtful implementation, which I'm sure these huge brands will do. It'll be interesting to see, the variety when it comes to rolling out these goods and services in the metaverse.
I could talk about the L'Oreal piece for a minute, but I'd like to just maybe come back to that in a minute. I'd like to start with CVS, which caught my eye recently, because I've been playing this game where I watch to see what trademarks are being filed and reported on, and then kind of guessing what the brands are going to do. Because in the trademark filing, I think the point you're making is they file the trademark for the metaverse, and then we don't know exactly what they're going to do with it. So CVS files a trademark to sell virtual goods, provide services in the metaverse. It does it in a way feel like kind of the natural brand extension of what CVS has been doing, which is expanding their healthcare offerings beyond just going in and buying your cold remedies, right? It also seems to me like the next logical step from telehealth, which became so popular, and we became so comfortable doing it during the pandemic. I was just talking to a friend who went for the first time to meet her therapist in person. She's basically only ever met her via telehealth option.
Yeah.
So in the filing, CVS says, and I'm going to read the quote, they are providing non-emergency medical treatment services, wellness programs, advisory services related to nutrition, health, lifestyle, nutrition services, counseling. Interesting, right? Like, okay, I get a sense, CVS, of what you're up to here. So
right.
I'm curious, Erin, your thoughts on it. If you're seeing other clients doing similar things, and can we use these filings as a pretty accurate way of predicting the direction we're headed?
I think so. Under trademark law, yes, we are seeing clients do this 100%, just like the virtual shopping experience that I spoke on before. We are definitely seeing them move in this direction. L'Oreal, Nike, you can go on the USPTO website right now, and all of these filings are public, with the government. So you can see how they're starting to file. A lot of the applications are pending, so they haven't yet been approved. So it'll be interesting to see, how the USPTO, the Trademark and Patent Office, responds to these filings. If they say, you can't do this, or you can do this, or this isn't specific enough, because there are certain grounds that they can refuse your trademark application on. But I definitely think, at the end of the day, it's all about increasing access. I think Carrie touched on this point, and so did our first speaker as well. Metaverse is really an opportunity to create access, for consumers and for brands as well. And so I think of telehealth, has done wonders during the pandemic for giving people access to mental health resources. And then you think about it, this can apply across any industry. I was laughing as I was thinking about this presentation, because I was thinking, what if I could attend, Fashion Week in the metaverse, or what if I could attend like the Met in the metaverse, and I could, judge the outfits right there from inside the metaverse. And so things like that, it can really provide consumers with these experiences that we might not otherwise have access to, as well as just providing, same thing with social media has always done this. It's allowed communities that are geographically separated to come together and mobilize. And so just think about incorporating augmented reality and VR, and how much stronger it would make those connections. I also think from the brand side, it's creating accessibility as well. This can be a really meaningful tool for, up and coming companies and brands who want to expand to really get creative. Maybe, there's still costs associated with it, but maybe they want to try a marketing concept in the metaverse before building it out in real life, because that would, real estate costs and things like that. So I really think that this is an opportunity, for consumers to get accessibility, but then also for the brands and the companies as well. And I think that being said, one point I just wanted to make sure to touch on was that, just like all technology, it can be a double-edged sword. In one way, it can really create great accessibility. It can homogenize level the playing field. But at the same time, we look to see who has access to this. So a lot of these tech concepts, especially with the metaverse, you think about it, if you have a computer, if you have a phone, you should be able to access it, right? But sometimes that's not always the case. I know I'm intimidated by these terms. I read something about crypto and I have to read it 5 times and I still don't really understand it. So we need to figure out how we can make these tools really accessible to everyone. And I think it starts with the language barrier and then also with, more access to legal counseling with respect to the laws that are in the space.
I really appreciate you bringing up that point. You are a highly educated person and you have to read it 5 times. That makes me feel much better because I think I have to read it 10 times to make sense of it. We were talking last month when we were talking about Web3 about sort of the use case isn't really fully understood yet. So is that yet one more challenge to the accessibility? I look at it as another challenge because I remember when somebody tried to explain Instagram to me when it first came out in 2011, 2012. And I was like, I'm saving my pictures. They're on my phone. I just barely started using that camera. What do you mean saving my pictures?
Right.
Now, of course, I get it. Is it a question of that, like time and use?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. I think one, it's what even is this, right? We're still defining what this is. And I still don't even know that there'll ever be one definition. It seems as if, it is ever evolving, ever changing. And then it's also whose responsibility is it to make this information accessible to everyone? And I think that's a really hard question to answer because who knows? It seems like a very challenging task, but also, it seems like one that's hard to get ownership over. So I feel as though, as these concepts are built out, that will definitely help, but there still needs to be some intentionality in terms of implementation of these resources and then, sort of dispersing the knowledge, if you will. Yeah.
Yes, interesting. I want to invite all of our panelists to come back on with us. So Caroline, Kat, Carrie, Aaron, all to join us. And, as everybody gets their cameras and their mics turned on, I kind of want to go to a different space to begin, which is my take on the future of this. I am curious what you all think. And I mean, maybe Caroline, it might be wise to start with you on this. Holograms. Stay with me for a minute. I do not want to put on a headset. I have zero interest in putting on a headset. Is there any, and I tried to Google to see if there's anything kind of growing in this space, and I can't remember if it was Kat or Carrie, one of you talked about having a set in your office that you could go to digital meetings. And I feel no, it'd be much easier if on my desk over here, all of a sudden up popped the leadership of the college and we could just talk, right? On a hologram. Am I out? Is that just not happening? Where are holograms? Caroline, any thoughts?
So this is somewhat, it's not a hologram exactly, but I could tell you a little bit what Obsess is doing right now, what we're working towards. So we are looking for social interaction without having to wear a headset. So one of the things that we're doing, we have Shop with Friends. So it's essentially live streaming. So you can get on video and you're in kind of our virtual store shopping and you can see, your friend shopping as well through videos. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is digital avatars. So, for Charlotte Tilbury, the cosmetic brand, we have a digital avatar of Charlotte Tilbury. So I feel those are 2 kind of steps going in that direction, but we haven't done anything with holograms yet. But we're definitely focused on digital avatars and the social aspect of getting people into the stores through video and live stream shopping.
Carrie, Kat, any thoughts on the hologram? Seen anything? Aaron, you as well?
I think we'll see it. I think technology will get there. It's just all in due time, right?
I feel that's how we're going to beam here and there, right? It's not actually, we won't be able to move our molecules, but you'll be able to get my being present.
Yeah, I think we'll get there.
I certainly hope so, because I share your horror of having to put on a big rig headset thing. I would much rather just be able to step onto a little platform and then I appear somewhere.
Yes. And I'm absolutely down for the Ray-Bans that tell me where the sale is. And, oh, by the way, you've got $5 on your Starbucks card. Do you want to go in and get a coffee? Sure. that I'm down for, but I don't know. Just a reminder to everybody, the Q&A is open at the bottom if you want to submit some questions. I do have some others, though, I could ask the whole panel. I'm curious, to revisit, Erin, you had brought up L'Oreal. I'm curious how you all are seeing brands like beauty specifically moving into this space. Because obviously we've seen through AR, the ability to try on lipstick, the ability to, put on different, basically, I mean, we're seeing now on TikTok, right? They're even showing us through AR how to apply the whatever look they have on. So how are brands approaching this, though? Because that's from the user's point of view. Anything on the brand side? Has anybody worked with a beauty company?
I mean, the brands are sort of, the beauty brands are doing similar things, at least from the work that I've done with beauty brands. They're launching lipsticks, right? You can buy an NFT of the lipstick color, right? So they're doing similar things that other brands are doing, right? With them at NFTs, partnerships with games, partnerships with other brands. So I don't know, other than what you've said in sort of like the virtual kind of try on, where there are the apps that you can try on. I haven't seen the sort of the beauty space do much, other different things. I mean, Caroline, I know you're doing stuff in the beauty space as well with sort of the virtual commerce and stuff, but it's not just beauty that's doing it.
Well, let's pop over to Caroline, because I know you guys have worked with NARS. What did their space you guys built out look like?
Yes, so NARS, we had a photorealistic virtual store. So we took pictures of their actual storefront in New York City. And then we did have an AR try on with lipstick and foundation. So we just integrated that functionality from, it's on their website as well. So we integrated that into the virtual store where you could, I think it was up to 100 different shades of foundation. You could get on video and then try on the different foundation as well as lipstick and match the foundation.
And match too. Erin or Kat, anything that you guys have seen or even experienced? Erin, looks like you're ready to say something.
Yeah, I feel like, so this has been, I haven't done an incredible amount of work in this space, but something I will say is that we've had a few clients come to us and want us to perform, market research to say, what are our competitors doing? And that's actually how I knew so much about L'Oreal, because that was some of the research that I came across. And I feel like once big players like L'Oreal, who have so many subsidiaries in this space, so you're really going to start to see this everywhere just by nature of them, owning so many smaller brands in the space, the makeup space specifically. We're starting to see clients, peek their eyes a little bit. And that's why I think there's sort of this mad dash. There seems like a sense of urgency to know what their competitors are doing, and then to kind of reassess based on that, what should our next move be, so that we stay current and relevant.
Which is all marketing has ever been, right? Like, it's always keeping up. Kat, I wonder if I can address this question to you, and then if anybody else has a thought on it, I'm curious your take. I have had this theory that we've only discussed the metaverse because Mark Zuckerberg changed the name of a company. Is that in fact the case? It seems like we've been in the space. I think you even said, like, we've been playing games. That's basically the same thing. Are we only having this conversation because of Mark?
I don't believe so. So here's my theory. We were moving online, moving to various different metaverses, but we weren't necessarily thinking about them as metaverses. We were thinking about, I go onto Fortnite, I go onto Roblox. These are my, sort of daily activities that I participate in. And I think what Mark Zuckerberg's announcement did was he forced everybody to start using the same language to talk about what we were already doing.
Well, I guess that was nice of him, but still drives me crazy. And then I'm just curious too, the other story that I was reading about, since it doesn't look like anybody submitted a question, I get to ask all of mine. I was recently reading about Wendy's moving into the metaverse. All right, Wendy's, it's a restaurant. Caroline, I don't know if I should start with you on this one, but I go to a restaurant to eat a burger. Why would a Wendy's want a build out in the metaverse?
Yes, so I did read about that. I think they called it Wendyverse. And essentially, I think it has some gaming element to it, if I'm correct. So they had, I think, a basketball court in there. They had like different types of, like, it was a gaming functionality, but it was like a whole entire village as well. It wasn't just like a Wendy's restaurant. And then they did have like a coupon, like you could win a coupon to shop in the real life, like Wendy's restaurant. So it's like a coupon for, a cheeseburger or something like that, or chicken nuggets. But that's
So,
what I read.
Carrie, I see you unmuted. I wonder if you've got something on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is this whole, right, this virtual worlds that, so many people participate in, right? And the brands want to be there because the people who are spending time in the virtual worlds, in particular, my kids, right? They want to be able to stop at a Wendy's, right? Spend their, digital dollars, digital bucks, and buy a Wendy's and say that they just ate the Wendy's, right? And this brand is building brand affinity and brand recognition in the metaverse. And that's why they all want to be there.
We just got it's the best answer, right? That we just got a question. It's actually an excellent one, also because I know this person quite well who submitted it, but she always has good questions. What about the jobs in the space? What would the job market look like in both the current and what to expect in the future? Erin, I'm curious if we could start with you on that one. Jobs people need to be thinking about, even skills you need to be thinking about.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like, of course, the computer science, the tech space, those hard skills, incredibly valuable before, but I only see it kind of increasing. I also think like there is a lot of need for creatives in this space. The opportunities are infinite when you think of experiential marketing. One of the ideas I just had on the phone, I said, maybe I can get hired, is thinking of Vogue and how Vogue does these segments where you're watching, your favorite stars do their makeup or show you their, nighttime routine. And imagine you're like in the room, having your champagne or your tea, and you're with your favorite star and you're watching them show you their beauty secrets. So there's just a wealth of opportunities here. And then also going back to my previous point earlier in the conversation about equity and accessibility, because I will plug that wherever I can. I think it's also really important to have, there's a term called design justice, and I wish I knew the person who coined it, but design justice is about centering, diverse voices at the forefront of implementation to make sure that we have, varying perspectives within the room, so that when we roll out these concepts and these ideas and tools, we're thinking broadly about how to reach everyone and give everyone opportunity to participate. So I definitely think having varying perspectives and with various skills and techniques relating to the creative side, but also to the accessibility, justice, equity, all of those things as well is very important.
Sasha Costanza Chalk was the person who came up with the design justice, if I remember correctly. I too.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, I'm for you on that one. Yes, Caroline, I wonder if I could address the same question to you. You come from a different perspective, and I will, Kat and Carrie, address it to you as well. But Caroline, as you look at your space and building out the actual metaverse for folks, what are the current and future jobs? What are the skills someone would need?
Yes, so I'm seeing 3D designers, even within Obsess, like looking for 3D designers is one of the big skills here. Also people, we kind of spoke about it the other day, at our management meeting, people with just knowledge about the metaverse. So even our account managers and our sales reps, we want them to have in-depth knowledge of the metaverse and be kind of metaverse experts. And then, like I said before, like at these like bigger brands like Gucci, they're hiring a whole entire metaverse task force. So I think any way that people could try to gain knowledge about the metaverse, maybe attending metaverse seminars and like webinars and kind of like we're doing today, I think would be helpful.
Excellent. Kat, how about to you? The skills, the jobs, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I was going to make the same point that Caroline just made, which is I think there are going to be tons of opportunities for creatives, for people who, with a marketing background, with a design background, with a computer science background, anybody who's got a deep familiarity with the metaverse. And my recommendation for that is going to be just go play around on the platforms, see what's there. because it can't be, it's not really a huge segment of the population right now that's doing it. It's mostly young people. And so if you can get in there, gain the knowledge about what the platforms are, you're going to be really marketable for one of these jobs that Caroline was mentioning.
And Carrie, same question to you.
Yeah, I would say AI and data analytics, right? And sort of having that experience. And then also just the legal aspects and knowing, what laws apply in this area, because people aren't always thinking about, the real world laws that apply and, how they can, have impact in the metaverse. So.
I would love to give each of you like 20 seconds to answer this question before we hang up today. And it is this: if we were to chat in 5 years, what is the thing about the metaverse that is going to shock us the most? Like, what will we be so excited to be talking about and maybe we're not talking about today? So I don't know if anybody wants to volunteer to go first on this one, but Aaron, you have a smile on your face, which makes me think maybe you have an answer. So I'll let you go first on this one. 15, 20 seconds. What do you think 5 years from now?
Oh, this is a hard one, but actually this answer might surprise you, and maybe this is just my personal values, but I do feel like, being inside during the pandemic has really sped up our, ideas and interactions and development with these concepts. But I do think that there still is going to be this craving for human interaction. And so I think what we're going to see is, something I think is really interesting is that the iPhone will now kick you off your phone after a certain amount of time, or it tells you, it kind of alerts you to like your screen time. And so what that tells me is that while these services want us using their products as much as we can, they're starting to implement, or at least want us to think they're starting to implement safeguards so that we're using these tools and incorporating them in our lives in a balanced way, so that we still have the meaningful human interactions, we still have a real life community feel, and we don't completely demonize sort of these tech spaces completely, because I agree. I think they can be fabulous tools, but I also, I spend too much time on my phone, I feel sick at the end of the day, and then it makes me not want to use it at all. But I don't think that's the answer, really. I think the answer is finding meaningful ways to incorporate it in our everyday lives, as a consumer. So I think that we'll find more nuance in the conversation about metaverse, so that it's not all or nothing. It's not, oh, the iPhone is all bad, you should just be outside, or it's not, metaverse, virtual reality is where I want to be. I think that we'll find more meaningful balance and harmony between the two spaces.
Caroline, to you briefly, future of this space.
I was actually just going to say about the same thing. I just envision like a really convergence between our real life and then our everyday digital life. And really, hopefully, we are moving in a direction to go off that, where it is a healthy relationship, where it's, we are having that human interaction element.
Kat, to you.
I think it's going to shock you how easily and seamlessly and natural it is going to feel to just wake up in the morning and be like, I have to run my errands. Sit down at your computer and run your errands, and then go about your daily life in a different way. I think that it's going to be very seamless, and we're all just going to have almost forgotten, in the same way that we forget that it used to be weird to put your credit card into a website and buy something via e-commerce. I think it'll be like that.
That's a good point. Carrie, to you.
And I was actually going to say kind of the same thing, Kat, this will all be perfectly normal to us, and it will be part of our everyday lives. And then I think what will be really interesting is the currency aspect of it, and to see what happens in that space with cryptocurrency, and do we really end up with these two separate worlds of currency and how they interact. So
I cannot thank the four of you enough, to your teams at Reed Smith and at Obsess for helping out with everything, and then to you four as well for participating today. Both companies have done so much research. It's available online in the space, and you could easily Google them and find all of those pieces. But to Caroline, Kat, Aaron, and Carrie, thank you so much for participating today. For those of you who are watching at home, you'll receive a link in the next day or so to recording of today's event, and a link to RSVP to next month's event. And we'll be back next month to discuss the future of omni-channel retail. So where all of this comes together in the brick and mortar space is kind of where we go with this next month. That's on June 14th. You'll get the link to RSVP in the next day or so. Until we meet again, as we always say here at FIDM, stay inspired and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you so much.